We're live, the daily sales briefing. This is Jeb Blount, CEO of Sales Gravy, author of Inc., Sales EQ, Fanatical Prospecting, and Objections. We're coming to you live from the Sales Gravy Clubhouse. Today's briefing is about counterintuition. So I read this weekend a comment on LinkedIn, and it was from a sales rep who said, it's so counterintuitive to me that people are answering their phones during this time of crisis. And it was kind of a weird thing to think about, but I imagine that a lot of people are thinking the same thing. It's sort of a mind game or a mind trick. Why wouldn't people be picking up their phones? Well, we would say, well, they're working from home. But if you imagine that you're calling into business to business and someone's working at home, they're working at home. So even if you called their office phone and left a voicemail, they're likely to pick up the voicemail and perhaps call you back if you leave a good voicemail. But more likely than not, they have a phone system that allows their call to be then rerouted to their cell phone. That's exactly how my business works. So if you call Sales Gravy's hotline during the weekend, it's going to ring to somebody on my team because we're all working from home. I think it's also important to understand that people are working from home and they don't have as much to do. So what we're finding is that not only are people answering their telephones, but the conversations are longer, they're more robust. And people are spending time with us having conversations. And that's a really, really good thing. Now, we've got a couple of questions about this, and we'll address those in just a minute. But I think one of the reasons why someone would say, well, it's counterintuitive that people are picking up the phone is it's their own internal voice saying, don't make calls, don't prospect, this is a bad time, because prospecting sucks and you don't want to do it. So you try to find ways of talking yourself out of doing what works. Now, there is some data. I saw some data from SalesLoft this week that the number of connects that they're getting through their system are down about 13% over the prior year. So certainly a lot of people are out, and there are some industries where, let's say you're calling into restaurants, you're probably not going to talk to many restaurant owners right now because not only are they not working from home, they're just not working at all. But there are particular industries, mine is one of them, where we are at work. So if you're calling to sell me something, people are probably going to talk to you, or at least you're going to get through. And because fewer people are calling right now because everybody is counterintuitive that nobody's answering the phone, there's a really, really good chance that you're going to get through. So A, think about it this way. Don't let yourself play those mind games. Pick up the phone and call people. They're there and they will talk to you. You're going to have more robust conversations. Get that out of your head. Two, make sure that you're targeting the right industry. So if you're selling into an industry that has been completely wiped out in this crisis, restaurants are a good example, you're going to have a harder time meeting people. And then finally, when we start looking at some of the data that's coming in from, and I'll use SalesLoft as an example, some of the data that's coming in, we know that fewer people are answering the phone, 13% fewer. That's not 100% fewer. That's a small group. You're probably going to have to make more phone calls to connect with people during this crisis. And if you do those things, you're going to be just fine. Now, that's my briefing for the day. Below me, if you're on salesgravy.com, there's a place where you can ask me questions. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can put them into the chat. I've got people monitoring that, and I'm going to answer your questions for you. So we've got about 30 minutes together. You ask me any question, I'll ask any. Just consider this like Jeb Unplugged. I think the first question we have, my friend Trey over here, who's right to my right side, is a question about from a rep who says that they feel like right now they're being a therapist to their customers and the people they're calling. And I think that's a fair question. I think that when we say that we're getting more robust conversations, longer conversations with people, that part of that process is that people are emoting. They're talking about their current situation. They're talking about their business. I mean, certainly I talked to a rep last week who called me up and we spent 15 minutes and it was kind of woe is me about, making payroll and paying for expenses and what's going on. And I think that's a good thing. So you might feel like a therapist, but maybe consider it like this. Why not make it feel like a friend? You're calling someone up, they answer the phone, they're having a conversation with you. And maybe instead of trying to sell them something, maybe instead of thinking about your own selfish needs to close a deal or get to an outcome, maybe instead think about trying to help them, listen to them, draw them in, make them feel important. Every time someone talks to you on the telephone, they're asking 5 basic questions of you. Do I like you? Do you listen to me? Do you make me feel important? Do you get me in my problems? And do I trust and believe you? And if you pick up the phone and listen to them, it makes you likable. It makes them feel important. It makes them feel like you get them in their problems, and they begin to trust and believe you. Some people are going to buy from you right now. Some people aren't. But if you make people feel good because you're having a conversation with them, what I can tell you is they're going to remember you. It just goes back to that old Maya Angelou quote that said, people will forget what you said or what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. So my trusty sidekicks, any other questions?
Well, Jackie Miles is wishing you well from Fernandez Beach,
Hey,
Florida.
Jackie from Fernandez Beach, Florida. How are you doing? Any other questions?
At the moment.
All right, going, going, gone. That is it. Mr. Producer over here, if you can conclude our daily briefing, do we have anything else? All right, that's it. No more questions for the day. This is it. We will be back tomorrow at noon for the next Selling in the Crisis daily briefing.